What's up, everybody? Today we're walking through the Baldesion Arsenal, the 56-player dungeon at the completion of the Eureka field operation zones in Final Fantasy XIV Stormblood. Is this dungeon really an unimaginably punishing duty, or is it large-scale, chill vibe social content? Since Mr. Happy never made his video, and since I've facilitated this more than almost anyone in the world the last 5 years, I'll walk you through it, and you can let me know your experience in the comments. Thanks for checking this out. Let's get started. In order to enter the Baldesion Arsenal, you'll need to complete the story and leveling process through each of the 4 Eureka zones, up to the cap at Elemental level 60. For more information on this, you can see my previous videos in this series. Once you've completed this and acknowledged the Baldesion Arsenal risk disclaimer, the dungeon is unlocked and you can begin looking for a group. In theory, the Baldesion Arsenal is open content that anyone can join anytime Ovni is killed, so long as you get the gold fate rating. In practice, if you're playing on any North America or European data center, you should expect to do the Baldesion Arsenal with a pre-made group, typically hosted, formed, and facilitated in the data center's main Baldesion Arsenal Discord. This isn't required, but it is highly encouraged to listen to the voice channel, particularly when you are new. Unless it is noted as a special run type, these discords organize everything for the group. They fill the parties, determine roles, provide direction, and give callouts for the group on the boss fights. Since this differs based on data center, I'll be explaining this guide mostly from the perspective of an Aether data center experience. In the description are links to the main North American and European Baldesion Arsenal discords. Each data center has its own style and personality, so I'd recommend trying them out and seeing which one works best for you. Logos actions make it possible for almost any job to fill almost any role, but for the sake of this guide, I'm going to describe fairly vanilla responsibilities and Logos action setups for each role. I typically don't, but some hosts may ask people to sign up for specific role and action combinations beforehand. Every member of the group should have a Vermilion Cloak or a Kirin's Asode before entering, based on your role. This will help make you significantly less squishy. If you don't have one yet, or can't afford one, many times the run organizers will be happy to set you up with one. For the rest of your gear, whatever 70 plus gear you have should be sufficient. Eventually, you'll want to upgrade to Elemental +2 armor in the non-body slots, but for starters, anything level appropriate is more or less the same. Next, make sure you have some food for the HP boost. I would also highly recommend having your Logos action tray expanded to 6, but this isn't mandatory. If you're new and you're coming on a run as a tank, congratulations, you're basically getting carried to a clear for like 95% of the run. The main tank positions are almost always taken care of by grizzled Baldesion Arsenal vets, so your main responsibilities will likely boil down to tanking 2 fairly easy trash mobs when the group splits into 6 rooms, potentially tossing feint on bosses to help out the DPS, and on the final boss you may have to spam your aggro actions or mitigate a splash damage when called out by the leaders. For Logos actions, bringing a basic loadout like this will allow you to accomplish your minimum responsibilities as a new player. If you're new and you're coming on a run as a healer, congratulations, you selected hard mode for your first adventure through the Baldesion Arsenal. Your job is to make sure no one, including the other new folks who likely haven't prepared at all, and more advanced melee DPS or tanks using double edge actions to literally kill themselves, actually die. While the tanks are basically hanging out on autopilot most of the run, you're going to need to be hyper-vigilant for the majority of the 45 minutes to an hour in the dungeon, otherwise someone will die at a really random time in a really random way. For the record, my first several hundred clears were all on White Mage, and I'm not a particularly skilled gamer, so it's not impossibly hard to do this, but it is more challenging than any other role. For Logos actions, bringing a basic loadout like this, or this, will allow you to accomplish your minimum responsibilities as a new player. Coordinate with your co-healer so that one of you has Refresh and the other has Bravery to cover both bases. If you're new and you're coming on a run as a DPS, congratulations. So long as you only touch what you're told and listen to callouts, you shouldn't die, and you should be able to play a lot of different ways relatively easily, while making meaningful and noticeable contributions to the run. Perception, Spirit Dart, Death, Paralyze, and Banish are all useful choices for a DPS, and no one is likely to complain if you pick any of them. For your Wisdom, there are two different schools of thought: maximize damage or mitigate damage. If you're confident that you can consistently follow the instructions from the callers and avoid standing in the bad, then I would recommend bringing a Wisdom that will boost your damage capabilities, because killing things faster is my favorite damage mitigation strategy. If you find yourself regularly living on the floor in Alliance Raid content though, you may want to bring Plate Bearer instead so that the healers don't have to use so many sacrifices on you. Once you've got your necessary Logos actions and you've joined the party at the run start time, make sure you're in Kugane so that the party leader can cue the group into Hideoutos for the Baldesion Arsenal. Occasionally, the group may need to leave and rejoin the instance because not all of the members of the raid group load into the same instance, so the recommendation would be to not activate any Logos actions until after Ovni. While waiting for Ovni, depending on how much time there is until its next spawn, you can look for Hideoutos elementals in these locations across the map to help the group with the passive regen and damage boost, or do some bunny fates for bunny loot and Hideoutos crystals, or just hang out on this rock waiting for everything to get started. Ovni does a bunch of fun mechanics that I won't spoil for you, except for this one that gives it a big damage up buff. Typically, one of the leaders or vets will always have Dispel active to remove it right away, but when they don't, it gets really spicy really quickly. How people feel about that varies greatly, depending on where you're running the content. In order to get the ethereally primed buff to enter the dungeon, you need to be inside the Fate Circle when it dies, and you need to get a gold rating on the Fate. Every member of the party needs to attack the boss at least once, but having a tank or two with stance on spamming the ranged aggro attack should ensure that your party qualifies. If you die within the last few percent of Ovni's health, do not accept a raise until after it dies and you have the buff. If you happen to be mid-revive when Ovni dies, you might actually not get the buff, which is required for you to be able to enter the portals to enter the Baldesion Arsenal. After 3 minutes, the initial portals will appear. Party leaders will let the group know which portals to use, typically using a macro, and reference a map in the Discord. The first ones will be blue, and you can't enter the dungeon using them without an etheric stabilizer in your inventory. If you do happen to have one of these, interacting with the portal will immediately consume it and transport you to inside the dungeon. Using one of these will cause a random red portal in a different spot to not spawn though. So, if anyone uses one on the post-Ovni portals, it's likely to cause interpersonal friction. I will not condone or condemn the usage of the items in this situation, but for the record, using these items is not against terms of service. Using these items to openly grief others is against terms of service. Griefing others who choose to use the item is also against terms of service. After another 4 minutes, the portals disappear and reappear nearby, but now they're red. These can be entered by anyone with the Ovni buff. Interact with your assigned portal, enter the dungeon, and prepare for the unimaginably punishing duty. Unimaginably. At this point, I want to reiterate the disclaimer from the beginning of the video. This guide is written from the perspective of a typical Aether data center run. The general concepts described for behaviors inside the dungeon should remain similar across North America and European data centers, but some minor variations may occur. After you enter the dungeon, the first thing you'll want to do is stand on the bridge right in front of you while people apply, protect, and shell to the group. While that's happening, make sure you apply a Spirit of the Remembered, eat some food, and then apply your role-appropriate wisdom and action. Once all of that is done, you can make an extra copy of Spirit of the Remembered and your wisdom and action combo at the Logos Manipulator. There's also a Magia Melder here if, for whatever reason, you want to reconfigure your Magia wheel, but I would typically just stay with all 5 slotted in one element. At that point, half of the group will be going left, and half of the group will be going to the right. your party leader should let you know which side your party will be completing, so confirm with them before dropping down off the ledge, because you'll be stuck on whatever side you drop to until after the first boss. Regardless of which side you are assigned for the run, there are a couple of basic things to know about the dungeon in general. First, if a healer in your party has the refresh action active, you can use the Magia Auto command to automatically spin your wheel to offensive or defensive if you're the healer or main tank. The trash is more dangerous than the boss fights in a lot of runs, so this will help eliminate it faster. Secondly, enemies in the Baldesion Arsenal don't have positionals, so you can prioritize standing where it's safe. Thirdly, these are the types of enemies that are great targets if you brought the death action. Demon Walls, Pepega, Biblos, Baby Girl, Centaurs, Horror from the Page Master, and these guys. The first fight is split between two arenas, with Art on the west path and Owain on the east path. Both bosses have to be engaged simultaneously, and if only one arena has been pulled, that boss will enrage and wipe everyone in the arena. Also, neither boss can die until both bosses are reduced to 1 hit point. So, if the DPS between the two sides isn't balanced, one side may end up waiting a while for the other to complete the stage. Both sides have different special mechanics as well. On the Art side, it does point blank or donut AoEs, which are then copied by any spears it deploys in the arena shortly after. Legendary Gaius applies gravity if you're moving when it casts, followed by a bunch of AoEs, and Gravity Ball smashes anyone standing at the snapshotted location of the marked player. On the Owain side, it does Ice or Fire point blank AoEs with visual tells at the same time as the spears of the same element. If you get marked with a triangle, stack with the other triangles, while everyone with the other AoE marker spreads out. If you get tethered to the hands, look directly at them. Move close enough to remove the damage reduction buff they have, but not close enough to where they can touch you, and then burn them down. If your side wins the race and finishes first, you can swap to defensive Magia alignment, stop DPSing, avoid the mechanics, and complain in shout chat about the other side griefing because they're so slow. After Art and Owain are dead, you'll head down a hall and up some stairs and meet up together in the middle to kill a bunch of trash. On the way there, at the top of the second set of stairs, there will be the first explosive trap that needs to be discovered or cleared by the person using Percept or a tank using their invulnerability action. Once that's identified, you'll all head into a room with 4 more hidden traps that apply a bleed and vulnerability up debuff. At the back of that room is the first treasure coffer that everyone needs to loot. All loot in BA is from the coffers, and all of the coffers are individual loot. This first one contains 3 Eureka fragments, but also sometimes has a bonus Damascene cloth or a cryptic seal in it, which is nice. Centaurs need to be slept when they cast Berserk on their second attack, or else they'll one-shot basically everyone until the buff wears off. Sprites need to be interrupted when they cast Vanish 3. The giant Calcabrina needs to face away from the group unless you like the idea of losing control of your character and attempting to murder your raid group with your bare hands. The Geshen pests are undead, so death will not work on them, but Banish does. Once you kill all of the stuff here, the doors at the top of the stairs opposite of the coffer will open, allowing you to take on the next boss, Raiden. Raiden does a lot of things that will either instantly kill you or basically do nothing. Thundercall turns the edge of the arena purple, which is cool. Ame no Sakahoko will paralyze you if you get hit, so keep your distance when he's casting it. Whirling Zantetsuken will kill everyone outside of his hitbox. Lateral Zantetsuken will kill everyone on the side of the arena that he points his sword at. Ultimate Zantetsuken kills everyone because you ignored the ads. Basically, if you see the word Zantetsuken, something bad is about to happen if you're not doing whatever everyone else is doing. Booming Lament is purple on the ground, but it actually does do something bad, so get out of that one. For Cloud to Ground, go stand behind the first marching AoE you see with the group, then run away from anyone who's tethered to you. If you see Levin Whirl or For Honor, you're either in an ultra low man group and you expected it, or your group has basically no DPS, and you can just blame the run host for all of the people that are about to be dead. Don't forget to grab your coffer exiting the arena. It definitely has at least 6 more Eureka fragments. It could also have a cloth or seal like the first coffer. In addition, there's also a chance that it could drop a glam weapon for Samurai or a Dark Knight. At this point, you'll kill a bunch more trash in the hall, with the only new notable enemy type being the Bibliotaph, which does large point blank or donut AoEs. Don't enter any room until all of the traps are found and all enemies have been secured by a tank. Along the way, you'll find another coffer, which will have 1 Eureka fragment, 5 obscure logograms, and another chance at bonus cloth or seals. Eventually, you'll find yourself in a long, narrow hall with 3 doors on each side and an invincible absolute virtue at the other end. In one of the 6 rooms, there's another chest with the same potential loot table as the last one. Also, in one of the 6 rooms, there's a portal that will take you to the next hall of trash you have to clear. The rooms with wind and lightning enemies each have a single explosive trap that needs to be uncovered, and the rooms with ice or water enemies both have 2. Tanks will pull enemies that need to be cleared out into the hallways until the coffer and portal are both found and accessible. Only touch what you're told to touch, or you'll probably die here. At this point, someone may decide to change the music here from the quiet, creepy vibes to the battle theme. If you see Absolute Virtue streaking down the hallway, just ignore it and it'll go back home shortly. Once you've gone through the portal, there's another coffer with the same loot table as the last 2 to your right. At this point, you should be at 12 Eureka fragments if it's your first time. If you have less than 12, reference this map to figure out what you missed. Or message Talia. Continuing on, there's another collection of trash, so handle it just like you handled all of the other trash so far. There's another bleed trap to avoid, then another hallway with 6 more rooms in it, similar to the previous one. Each room in this hallway has a blue circle on the floor. Touching each one of those blue circles, though, is a hidden explosive trap, so make sure each room is percepted or cleared of the trap before entering. Each data center identifies the rooms in a different way, but your party lead should be able to show you which one your party is assigned. 1 tank in each room should swap to defensive alignment for the element of the assigned room. Make sure that the tank stance is on, and then stand in the blue circle. When all 6 are occupied, the support fate will spawn outside in hideouts, and 2 more trash monsters of the associated element will spawn in each room. Burn them down, and the door at the far end of the hall will open up, allowing the groups to progress further into the dungeon, which is actually just a long run back to the first 6-room hallway where you need to kill more trash. Tanks, make sure at this point to turn that stance back off unless you're designated to tank the trash. The Centaur and Bibliotaph like to hide inside the doorway to the ice or water rooms sometimes, so make sure they're dead before proceeding to the bridge in front of Absolute Virtue. If you're outside completing the support fate, it's important that someone in the group has a spell. It gives itself a massive damage up buff and then spams AoEs, similar to Ovni. Completing the fate with gold rating gives 30 Hideautos crystals and the ethereally primed buff that allows you to take one of the 8 support portals and join the rest of the group for the last 2 bosses. I would highly recommend procuring some etheric stabilizers to use specifically for participating in the raid as a support team member. The support portals change locations when they swap from blue to red and can be in very inconvenient places. Stabilizers save some time, but also make it much more likely you won't have a random person grab a portal you were hoping to take. Once you're in, make any final Logos actions you may need or that the group is running low on. Take the shortcut, and join the group at Absolute Virtue. The basic concept of Absolute Virtue is that opposites are good. It'll display bracelets of light or dark color, and the colors on the floor that match them are dangerous. All of the circles are dangerous, but the same colored circles will also expand when they explode. When the room splits in half, stand on the opposite color side. When it triple room splits, the copy of AV to look at is the one standing on the line. If you're tethered to an orb, standing in a puddle of the opposite color resolves the mechanic. It is 1 person per puddle. Also, make sure not to touch the orb while you're in the middle of the stack of people. It will give the entire group massive damage and a damage down debuff. A couple of other notes here. The Tank Buster is a cleave, so don't stand by the main tank. It spams a conal attack that will petrify you and likely get you killed by the following mechanic, so stay on the back of the boss's hitbox when you're not resolving another mechanic to avoid getting stuck in this. If you see ads, secondary tanks should grab them and the group should death them or burn them down as soon as possible because they can and will wipe the raid. Absolute Virtue does have an enrage at 7 minutes and 20 seconds, so it is possible to fully wipe. But I've typically only seen this on meme runs over the last several years, so it's very unlikely that you'd experience this in a typical run that's actively looking to clear. At the exit to this arena is the second to last coffer of the dungeon. It always contains 6 Eureka fragments and 5 obscure logograms, but can also give a cloth and seal or a conditional virtue minion. At this point, you'll head down one more hall and one more set of stairs to reach the final boss, Ozma. There are 2 more trash mobs, Arsenal Strix, in front of the door to the arena. Interrupt on the Properties of Darkness, otherwise the entire raid will have a buff stripped, usually your Spirit of the Remembered, which sucks. Once they're dead, the doors open, the cutscene plays, and the caller or hosts will go over final preparation for Ozma. While waiting for the instructions to proceed, don't touch the blue circle near the edge. It will push you into the arena and you'll end up being killed if there's an early pull. Once final preparations are complete and you get the instructions to jump down, go ahead and touch the blue circle to move into the arena. The edges of the platform and the rings are not walls, so you can fall off, which will kill you and drop your corpse on the platform in the front of the entrance to the arena. Also, do not target Ozma for any reason until the pull time. It's way easier than you think to have an early pull that could result in people getting ejected from the fight or even wiping the entire raid group. Ozma has a bunch of phases, mechanics, and tells that I'm not going to go into details for in the scope of this guide, but I will explain the most critical things so that you can be prepared. First is Black Hole. For this mechanic, every blue circle on the platforms and the rings have to be covered by at least one person, or everyone in the arena will get ejected to the base camp and hideouts, and the run is over.
Button, everyone to a blue button. Range preferably on the ring button to the right. I got pulled out because I was trying to make
Jesus Christ, everybody got
Oh, you're joking.
somebody on A.
Gee.
There was only like 2 people on A and they were not getting close. Well,
Also, every person must be on one of those circles to get a buff that prevents you from individually being ejected. If you're dead when this mechanic finishes, you also get ejected. Melee and tanks typically stack on the circles on the platform, while anyone with ranged attacks would go to the circles on the ring. The next mechanic to explain is meteors. 2 people on each platform will get marked with a point-blank AoE centered on them. You have a few seconds to move them into a safe space so that they will snapshot, and one of you will want to go immediately to the back of the platform, the other will immediately go to the circle on the ring to the right of your platform. Once the marker is placed on the ground, you'll run back to the group at the front of the platform to minimize AoE damage, and then burn down the adds that spawn at the spots the meteors dropped. The adds cast Tornado if they aren't killed quickly enough, and will wipe full platforms, so prioritize them when they're up. Another mechanic to call out specifically is Acceleration Bombs. This will target a few people in the arena with a debuff that looks like this. The debuff will have a countdown timer, and when it disappears from your debuff bar, it'll blow up and damage you and everyone near you for 90% of your max health. To avoid that, sheathe your weapon, stand still, and make sure you're not doing anything at all until it's gone from your debuff bar. Other than that, there's a star knockback that will knock you to the front or the back of the platform. You'll stack in the front, back, or off the platform to avoid different AoEs, and you'll avoid standing with your back to an edge so you don't get nudged off. There's some shared AoEs, so stay stacked with the group if you're not resolving a mechanic. The damage on the tank is a cleave sometimes, so stay on the opposite side of the tank on the platform. If you're a main tank for the fight, you'll stand to the left and just generate aggro. That's it, no rotation necessary. If you're the off tank, you're actually just a DPS until Ozma spawns orbs on the ring during the cube phase. Then pop your cooldowns with the exception of your invulnerability skill, touch the first one to the right of the platform, your healer should throw you a quick heal, and then you touch the second one. After that, go back to being a DPS. If you're the bleed bait, you'll stand at the back of the platform when Ozma is in pyramid phase. Throw a shield on yourself to mitigate the bleed entirely, or Asuna it off after a couple of stacks. You just want to be far enough away from everyone else that they don't also get the bleed splashed on them due to proximity. If you somehow have not killed it but are still alive at the 6th black hole, you'll either rush to finish the last sliver of health, or intentionally fail the black hole mechanic to get sent back to camp in Hydatos. This will allow you to avoid the wipe and having to re-level. Either way, that's the end of the road. If you got ejected, better luck next time. There's runs almost every day, so it won't be long until you've completed the challenge. If you finish the fight, congratulations! You can jump off the platform as much as you like now because it won't kill you. It'll just respawn you on the platform at the arena entrance. Once you're bored of jumping, go grab your last treasure coffer to get a guaranteed seal, cloth, orchestrion roll, and 10 more Eureka fragments. Use the exit marked on the platform right behind the coffer to finish up the story. Once the story is complete, you can collect your very own shiny Ozma mount from your achievement window. I've been doing this for 5 years now and host a new run every week at 9 p.m. Eastern Time on the Aether Data Center, so feel free to sign up and come hang out anytime you're interested. I hope this guide was informative and helped you to feel like you have a solid understanding of the Baldesion Arsenal experience. Like and subscribe if you want to see more content like this in the future as we roll it out. Oh, and Mr. Happy, feel free to reference this guide going forward when people come looking for the one that you forgot to post 3 years ago. Glad to be able to help. Until next time, I'll see you folks out there. Thanks for watching.